Hello everyone, my name's Gunnar. I'm here to talk to you today about Catullus. Catullus was a Latin poet that we actually did not cover in the course, but his work is in the Norton Anthology. So if you enjoy this presentation, which I'm sure you will, you should go read some of his poems. They're great. Catullus lived roughly from 84 to 54 BC. He was born in Italy and lived towards the end of the Roman Republic. To kind of give you an idea of where he fits in on the overall historical timeline, Catullus dies about 10 years before Julius Caesar does. Catullus actually worked under Julius Caesar in the Roman government. We're not sure exactly what position he held, but we do know that it took him on some trips. One such trip, he went to Bithynia, which is roughly where Turkey is today, and he visits his brother's grave, and this is an event that affects him deeply enough to write a poem about it, which I'll come back to later. Another thing you should know about Catullus is that most of his poems are love poems that revolve around a fictional lover named Lesbia. And it's believed that Lesbia is based on a real person, an actual lover that Catullus would have had. It's not confirmed, but it probably happened. And the main thing that attracted me to Catullus when I was looking for something to do a presentation on was just his style really kind of stands out in the anthology because his voice and his style are almost something similar to something a little more contemporary, something we might see in 17th, 18th century poetry. And also a lot of his poems are funny and crass and just really not what you would expect in the anthology. And in a lot of ways, he does maybe pay tribute to Homer and some of the more classical styles of poetry, but in a lot of ways, he really tries to steer away from that and kind of makes it a little more new, and I found that really interesting. Catullus captures a lot of different topics in his poems. Certainly, the subject that he has the most poems on is love, like most poets. But most of his love poems, as I said, revolve around Lesbia, a fictional lover. The poems kind of differ in either talking about how much Catullus loves Lesbia, how she betrayed him, and eventually just him feeling really bad about himself, being angry at her, having these feelings of self-loathing. So it kind of gets the full arc of just a really bad relationship. I included some excerpts here for all these different subjects that just kind of give you an idea of his voice and his style. You should go check out the full poems and, of course, the rest of his poems that are anthology on your own if you're interested. Catullus also talks a lot about loss, not necessarily loss in a romantic relationship, as he talks about with the Lesbia poems, but he writes on a little bit the loss of family members or the loss of friends. I mentioned earlier that he wrote a poem about his experience visiting his brother's tomb, and one of his more famous poems is poem 101, and he writes about that event. It's pretty powerful. As I said before, Catullus was a member of the Roman government, so some of his poems are political in nature. Even though he worked under Caesar, he was actually kind of critical of some of the things Caesar did and some of the things that other politicians that he worked with did. One poem that kind of stands out from the rest of Catullus's library is poem 64, because it's much longer than the other ones. It's an epyllion, which is a mini epic, and it's much more in that classical style of the Iliad or the Odyssey, and that epic poetry. It tells the tale of the marriage of Achilles' parents, Thetis and Peleus. And the last kind of subject that Catullus covers is just dissing other people from the era. Other poets or politicians that were his rivals. Maybe he worked with them and just didn't agree with how they acted or what they said. There's just, he really started diss tracks just 2 millennia ago. The first poem of one of these that he's addressing a poet and a politician that he disagrees with is "Up yours both and sucks to the pair of you." It's just debilitating stuff. Okay, well, that gives you a little bit of an idea of Catullus and his poetry. Obviously can't capture his whole library in this little presentation, so I kind of included some excerpts for you. I would definitely encourage you to go read some more of them, get a better feel for him, read his introduction in the Norton. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you were able to learn something about Catullus and his style and kind of his place in the overall canon that's captured with the ancient literature that we've read. I think he does kind of stand out, just being kind of a unique character in himself, and unique and interesting to think about with respect to the rest of the Norton. All right, thank you for watching. You have a swell day.